Next story I would like to share is when Krishna was an adult. He was a king and a counselor, a confidant to the Pandava brothers and the Kaurava brothers. As you know, the war of Kurukshetra, the war of the Mahabharata, happened between the good Pandava brothers and the evil Kaurava brothers. And Krishna, war seemed inevitable, unfortunately, but Krishna decided to make one last attempt to try to broker peace. So he decided to go to Hastinapur, the capital of the Kauravas, which happens to be in present-day New Delhi area. And he was received with great pomp by the Kauravas. The chief prince, Duryodhana, received Krishna with great joy, and he offered him his own palace to stay in. And he had asked his chefs to prepare the most luxurious banquet possible. But Krishna politely declined Duryodhana's invitation to stay with him, because Krishna knew that Duryodhana was not very sincere. He had made up his mind to have this war, and he was just being hypocritical in trying to offer this hospitality to Krishna. Krishna instead decided to accept the hospitality of Vidura. Now, Vidura was one of the chief ministers in the court of the Kauravas. He was an extremely honest, very wise person. In fact, he was one of the few who had the courage and the strength to stand up to Duryodhana and to tell him to not have this war. He tried to dissuade Duryodhana from having this war. And yet when war became inevitable, Vidura and his wife decided to go away on pilgrimage to the Himalayas. They refused to fight in this futile war. And as we know, the Kauravas were decimated in this war. And Duryodhana and Vidura and his wife were one of the few survivors of this war. Anyway, coming back to the story, Krishna accompanied Vidura to his humble home and was received very graciously by Vidura's wife. They both, Vidura and his wife, they both washed Krishna's feet at the entrance of their home, and they escorted him inside. They made him sit on the sofa in the living room, and they both sat at his feet with tears streaming from their eyes in utter disbelief that their spiritual guru, their master, had agreed to come to their humble abode. They could not believe how fortunate they were. After some time, Vidura's wife went into the kitchen and she brought back with her a platter of bananas as an offering for Lord Krishna. And she sat down, and her husband Vidura sat next to her at the feet of Krishna in a state of ecstasy, in a state of utter joy. And they wanted to offer these bananas one by one to Krishna. And they were peeling these bananas and offering it to him. And Krishna was happily eating the fruit. Now, there was one problem. What happens when you're in the company of a great soul? One is in such a state of joy, and one sort of loses a little bit of touch with reality because you're so absorbed in that magnetism of that personality. And the same thing happened with Vidura and his wife. In the ecstasy of their joy, they were peeling the banana, throwing away the fruit, and offering the peel to Krishna. And Krishna was happily eating the peel. Peel after peel. They had the whole platter. They kept feeding him the peels without realizing what they were doing. And if any one of you has tried to eat even a small portion of a banana peel, you know it is not something that is very tasty. Very difficult to chew. And Krishna ate peels after peels of bananas. In chapter 9, verse 26 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "The reverent presentation to me of a leaf, of a flower, a fruit, or water, given with pure intention, is a devotional offering acceptable in my sight." And I suppose we can now add fruit peels to that list as well. Paramahansaji, in his commentary on that verse, says, "The outpouring of heartfelt love is the only sacrifice the Lord desires from his creatures."